Honourable David Cunliffe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Minister of Finance, what was New Zealand's net core Crown debt as a percentage of GDP as at 30 June 2008, and what is the most recent forecast of current levels?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, at 30th of June 2008, when the New Zealand economy had already been in recession for 6 months, net core Crown debt was 5.7% of GDP, but the signs were very worrying. By the time of the pre-election update in October 2008, before Labor left office, forecasts showed net debt jumping to 26% of GDP by 2018-19, plus a decade of deficits. This was before the global financial crisis. By December 2008, by the time of that update, the forecast had deteriorated further, with net debt soaring to about 50% of GDP and never falling, as well as permanent deficits. So this government, within a few weeks of taking office, had to deal with a sharply deteriorating fiscal outlook, in the first place because of reckless Labor mismanagement, and secondly because of the global recession.
Now, the member on notice put down a question that asked for a comparison between net core Crown debt as a percent of GDP at 30 June 2008 and the most recent forecast of current levels. Now, I let the Minister go on to explain the change in forecasts towards the end of 2008 because it was of relevance to the question. However, in failing to provide the most recent estimate of or forecast of net Crown debt, but instead going on to attack the opposition, that was not in order. I asked the Minister, though, to complete answering the question, to provide, since it's a question on notice, to provide the House with the answer to that second part of the question.
The Honourable Bill English.
13% of GDP.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr. Speaker, to the Minister, having inherited close to zero net Crown debt on taking office, and having cancelled 2 rounds of personal tax cuts in Budget 2009, why does the Minister now believe it is fiscally prudent to borrow further to fund tax cuts in Budget 2010?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the member is just wrong about what situation the government inherited. The pre-election update in October 2008 showed net debt jumping to 26% of GDP, and 2 months later the forecast showed an increase to 50% of GDP.
Order. Point of order, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr. Speaker, I do appreciate your assistance so far in this debate. As you pointed out earlier, this was a question on notice and the opposition worked hard to make it entirely factual and unembellished. And the Minister earlier said that net core Crown debt, by his reckoning, was 5% or thereabouts at the first date specified. The Minister cannot now, in reply to a supplementary, extrapolate from that to a number in the 20s and be within the bounds of the primary answer, Mr. Speaker, and I would ask you to draw him back to his original answer to the question put on notice.
Order. I think on this occasion the member's drawing quite a fine bow because he said, given certain, from memory, zero net Crown debt, why is the government doing certain things? And the Minister has challenged that that claim of near zero net Crown debt because the Minister has pointed out that, in fact, the pre-election fiscal updates established that wasn't the situation. I think it's within the Minister's rights to use that relevant information in answering the question. I think to stop him from using relevant information in answering the question would be unreasonable. Had the Minister finished that answer? Because he was stopped by a point of order. I'd invite the member, if he's got a further supplementary, to ask it.
Mr. Speaker, supplementary question 3. Can the Minister explain how New Zealanders will be better off when they have to pick up the tab for high-income tax cuts at the same time that he's increasing GST and making all the basics more expensive?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I pointed out to the member, he should wait for the budget to look at the balance of any proposed increase in GST and any proposed reduction in income tax. The government has always said the package will be broadly fiscally neutral, because we need to correct the mismanagement of his government, where property speculation and borrowing got out of control, and so did government spending, and this government is focusing on earning the money before we spend it.
Question number 4, Alan. Supplementary question, David Bennett.
Supplementary question to the Minister of Finance. What would have happened had the current government made no changes to the economic policies it inherited?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, by the time the government, this government took office, it was clear that debt and deficits were spiralling out of control. As I noted in the budget last year, if there had been no policy change, net Crown debt would have hit 62% of GDP and climbing by 2023. This would have been disastrous for the economy, resulting in a credit ratings downgrade, higher interest rates for households, businesses and taxpayers, and costing thousands of jobs. So when the opposition spokesman looks at himself in the mirror every morning, as I'm sure he does, how can he honestly claim his party left the economy in good order?
Question number 4, Alan Peachy.
Mr Speaker, my question is